Let's stay on Capitol Hill. Democratic Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island is joining us. He's a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Armed Services Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
Let's start with the questions about that meeting in the Seychelles Islands in January 2017 during the transition, whether it was some sort of effort to set up back-channel communications with Russia. What's the significance from your perspective of that?
Well, first of all, it's been confirmed by all our intelligence agencies that there was active engagement by the Russians in our election in 2016. The question is, was there a direct relationship or a prominent relationship with the Trump campaign and the Russians? And this meeting sort of sticks out because it's in the transition period, and it's a dialogue between someone who is involved with the campaign, the Trump campaign, and a Russian, and again now the discovery of this Mr. Nader's participation too. So this is all sort of seems to be leading to the question of which Mr. Mueller is considering is, was there any involvement directly with the Russians in the campaign by the Trump operation?
Because as you heard, the Blackwater founder Eric Prince denies that was the purpose of the meeting. But why would the incoming Trump administration need some sort of back-channel communication during the transition before the inauguration?
Well, I don't think that they would have necessarily needed it. And again, this might not be sort of trying to start a back channel, but just continuing a channel that had already been established. That's the real issue, I think, here. There are appropriate ways in which you transition a president-elect can conduct relationships, but the norm typically is you don't really engage, particularly through unofficial sources, until you're sworn in. That's my general sense of the way the procedure should work.
Let's get to another sensitive issue. A White House official now says John Kelly, the White House chief of staff, has warned the president about talking to witnesses in the Russia investigation. This follows a New York Times report that President Trump asked two witnesses about their conversations with Robert Mueller's team. Does that cross a line?
Well, it does get very, very close to a line because it's not just trying to find out information. It's, as they would say in the Army, it might be, undue command influence, i.e., sending the message not just to those that may have been questioned, but those that would be questioned in the future, that what they say would be commented upon or they'd be queried by the president. That's not a good practice. I think John Kelly's advice is sound advice.
The White House senior advisor, the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as you know, he's been in Mexico City. He met with the president of Mexico. Despite having a security clearance downgraded from top secret to secret on an interim basis, an outgoing career diplomat with 30 years experience in the region was not on the trip. The outgoing U.S. ambassador to Mexico was not in that meeting. There's some confusion at the same time exactly about what the president is going to do about tariffs involving Mexico and Canada. Here's a lot of people are asking, where's the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, in all of this right now? He seems to be, on these sensitive issues, MIA.
Well, I think it's not just the Secretary, it's the entire State Department. And it seems that this is not just accidental. There's so many vacancies. Diplomats. I was in Jordan a few weeks ago. There is no ambassador in Jordan. In fact, Mr. Kushner showed up there, apparently went to see the King Abdullah without any real support from the embassy. This ad hoc diplomacy is not good at all. And it's not just one place or one issue. It seems to be consistent. We don't have an ambassador in Somalia. I was visiting there. That's a place where we have troops in contact. We don't have an ambassador in Libya. We don't have an ambassador in Turkey. So this is not just one issue. This is a department that I think has been deliberately undercut, and that will not help us. We can't conduct the business of diplomacy in the United States on a one-off basis, ad hoc meetings by people who, frankly, may be well-intentioned but not well-informed or experts in the area.
Yeah, there's still no U.S. ambassador in South Korea. either, and we know
exactly
how sensitive the Korean Peninsula is right now. But you're a former U.S. Army Ranger. You know a lot about classified information. Can a special U.S. envoy like Jared Kushner really go into meetings with a leader like the President of Mexico or the King Abdullah of Jordan, or go to China, deal with the Israeli-Palestinian peace process without access to top secret information?
I think it's very difficult. First of all, he can't be briefed at a level that will allow him to make a very good judgment about what people are telling him. When he's sitting down with a foreign leader, he has to be able to have the whole context. He has to know more, hopefully, than the individual knows, so that he can make a real judgment. His contribution can be, focused. So without this, he can have a conversation, but it does not have the effect of someone who is fully briefed and fully vetted to know everything we know about the situation.
Finally, Senator, the White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders says President Trump won in an arbitration in a lawsuit filed by the porn star Stormy Daniels. That was the first time the White House has admitted the president was involved in any way with Daniels. What do you make of that and the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels to stay silent only a few weeks before the November 2016 presidential election?
Well, it raised a host of issues, but the one I think that is of not exclusive concern, but of serious concern, is the campaign finance laws. Was this in some way a in-kind contribution? Was it in some way connected to the campaign? And that has to be evaluated and examined and either confirmed or refuted. But there are just a host of issues, of legal issues that have been raised by this disclosure.
You agree that with some of your Democratic colleagues that maybe the FBI, the Justice Department, or even the special counsel should look into all this?
Well, I think someone should. I mean, immediately the Federal Elections Commission, if there's particularly, I think there's already been a complaint filed. But someone has to look into this, and it has to be done promptly, and it has to be done not only for the finding the truth, but also to clear this issue off the table, so it's not causing further disruption in the White House, which is certainly under a stormy path at the moment.
Certainly is. All right, Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island. Right now, by the way, South